Apparently, the Trump lawyers, or I should say the Justice Department lawyers, who now serve as Trump lawyers, had a rough day in court. The judge who recently ordered a plane that was taking immigrants to El Salvador to turn around and come back held a hearing to find out why his order was disobeyed. And it didn't go well for the Trump team. And I started thinking, what a difference it would make if all these court hearings were televised, where people could see them with their own eyes instead of having to rely on third parties to relate to them what they read in a court transcript. So much goes on at these hearings in these White House cases and DOJ cases that's embarrassing for the Trump team that it's a real shame people can't see it for themselves. And it happened again today, and I'll get to it in just a minute. But first, in relation to this court thing not being televised, the reason I say it should be is I remember sitting in a movie theater here in New York a few years ago, watching a movie, and whenever the bad guys got caught, everybody in the theater cheered and clapped. And I remember thinking, I'm sitting here in a room full of people from all different cultural and ethnic backgrounds and all different national backgrounds. And yet when we all see the same thing, we all have the same reaction to it. Now imagine if that could be applied to these federal court hearings. Imagine if instead of having to get the information from somebody who read it, and now they're just relating it to us verbally, imagine if we could actually see the court hearing for ourselves and judge for ourselves. Imagine if we could see with our own eyes the DOJ lawyers making fools of themselves instead of just hearing about it. If it's true, as the Washington Post says, that democracy dies in darkness, well, there's nothing darker today than federal courtrooms, which just happens to be the place where the most important drama of the most important story in our nation today is playing out. Yet federal courtrooms are one of the most opaque places in our society. It's like looking into a black box. And if this republic is going to be saved, that's one of the big things that needs to be changed. We need to see what's going on in these courtrooms. The sad truth is that about our only peek into the courtroom is from good people like Glenn Kirshner, who goes on YouTube with people like Brian Tyler Cohen and describes for us what happened. But he wasn't there either, so he's reading it from the court transcript, I'm assuming, and telling us what happened from that. And no matter how good a job he does at describing it, and I think he does a great job, it's nowhere near as powerful as seeing a video of it happening in the courtroom would be. So let's take a look at this clip when Glenn is explaining to Brian what happened in federal court today in the case involving the judge who ordered the Trump administration to bring back the immigrants they had illegally deported to El Salvador.
The eyes of the nation are on Judge Boasberg's courtroom right now. Judge Boasberg demanded that Donald Trump's administration not continue to deport these Venezuelans who are accused gang members until they've actually had their due process. The Trump administration refused to comply with this court order. And so in turn, Judge Boasberg demanded that the Trump administration come back into court to explain themselves. We now have an update as far as how that hearing went. Can you explain what happened?
The DOJ lawyers didn't have a lot of answers. Judge Boasberg was incredulous, and he said, here's what I'm ordering you to do. I want a sworn affidavit, so that sort of gets around the DOJ lawyers, yammering and stammering about we don't really know what went on here. I want a sworn affidavit with a chronology.
Now, try to imagine actually seeing this happen instead of just being told about it. Imagine watching the judge ask the Trump lawyers simple questions and them not being able to answer. You could see them stammering and stuttering, trying to come up with an answer that they're unable to come up with. And you can see the judge getting justifiably more and more agitated. And then finally he throws the book at him and says, hey, look, you got to come back with a sworn affidavit telling me the timelines of when all this happened. Now, imagine the public gets to watch the next hearing after watching this first one. And when they come back with the timelines and nothing makes sense, then people can decide for themselves as they're watching them fumble again and giving insufficient answers and seemingly dishonest answers. Then the public could say, wow, they did something really wrong because they can't give straight answers on anything. But as it is now, all we're going to have is someone like Glenn come out and tell us what happened. And about all he can do is tell us that they couldn't keep their story straight. And it was a total embarrassment for the administration. But to have someone tell you they couldn't keep their story straight and to actually watch someone who can't keep their story straight, that's two totally different things. And one is far more powerful than the other. So yes, we need transparency in the courtroom, and we need it now, because in all these cases, I'm convinced that if people could see them, that would be the clincher. That would be the thing that would help people see something is very, very wrong with this administration. They could see it with their own eyes. They could see the incompetency and the dishonesty. But as it is, what we have are people like Glenn on one side saying that what happened in the courtroom was a total disaster for Trump. Then on the other side, the media goes to the White House press office and a reporter asks the press secretary, "Don't you think that was a disaster?" And she says, "Absolutely not. It's fake news from the corrupt media." And in the end, if the people can't see the actual video, then we're just dribbled between both sides like a basketball. Most people don't know what to make of it. What I'd love to see, since this obviously isn't going to happen anytime soon, I'd love to see some experienced courtroom lawyers get together who understand how courtrooms work and reenact these transcripts in a realistic way. That, to me, would be the next best thing. So if you know any good lawyers or actors, mention this to them and see if anybody's interested. It's worth a try. I mean, it's about all we got at this point. Anyway, I appreciate you watching, and if you're interested in supporting conservative Christian media that's not MAGA, click like and subscribe, and you will have done your part today. Thanks and take care, and see you next time.